Welcome to the Citation podcast. I'm Nigel Lee, and today we're talking about an issue that every cleaning and FM business experiences at some point, sickness absence, and how changes to SSP, Statutory Sick Pay, fit into that picture. In this sector, even if one person is off sick, it can have a big impact. Early starts, multiple sites, and tight service levels means that when someone doesn't turn up, the pressure quickly lands on supervisors, colleagues, and the relationship with the client. At the same time, employers are trying to navigate SSP rules, be fair and consistent whilst protecting their people and also having an impact on their contracts. I'm joined by two excellent guests. First, we have Jill McAteer, Director of Employment Law at Citation, who advises clients on HR and legal issues, including sickness absence, SSP, and complex workforce challenges. And we've got Neil Spencer-Cook, Group Managing Director of the British Institute of Cleaning Science, bringing the professional standards perspective and insight into what members are experiencing on a day-to-day basis in their businesses. To set the scene, we know that managing sickness badly can strain relationships, increase the stress on teams, and ultimately affect service quality. But with the right processes, conversations, and support measures in place, absence can be managed in a way that's fair, consistent, and most importantly, sustainable. So let's start there. Jill, from your work with dealing with some of our clients over the years, what would you say are the most common challenges they face right now around SSP and sickness?
I think the biggest challenges they have at the moment is the sheer extent of sickness absence levels. They have probably doubled, I would say, in the last 5 to 6 years. We've given 1,500 pieces of advice on sickness absence alone to the cleaning sector. And I think a lot of that absence actually is driven by long-term, not just short-term sickness absence. Typically, one would have seen in the past short-term sickness absence issues being very common in the sector. But now 60% of the advice we give is in relation to long-term sickness absence, which is higher risk and much more difficult to manage. And then we also have the challenges of dealing with the Employment Rights Act changes to SSP.
I say, Neil, from your perspective, from feed to members, you see them at events that you do and the roadshows that you do and whatnot as well. Is that kind of the similar type of conversation that you're having with clients? Are you seeing a bit more of an issue and awareness around the Employment Rights Act and whatnot?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a lot more knowledge of the Employment Rights Act. Obviously, the changes in April have made a big difference, and one of the biggest ones there is SSP. But I'd agree with Gillian in the fact that we are hearing that there's a lot more longer term sickness and perhaps less short term. It's very hard to actually pinpoint why, but yeah, I'd definitely agree with what Gillian said, and definitely agree that the changes that came into force in April are having an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously SSP, it can feel like a maze of rules, thresholds, technicalities, and it's easy to worry about getting something wrong. So, Jill, I guess from your perspective, in practical terms, what can an employer do, and what do they need to understand about SSP at the moment?
Well, the April changes that were introduced on the 6th of April, it's absolutely key to understand that what they are and that you are actually following the new rules in your business. So first of all, waiting days have been scrapped. So traditionally, we've worked under a system where the first 3 days of sickness absence were not paid, SSP. So that really captured a lot of the people taking a day off here and there. But now that's been scrapped altogether. So sickness absence, SSP is paid from the first day of sickness absence. Also, the requirement, again, which is we've had in the system previously, that employees had to earn at least the lower earnings level, which was £125 a week, in order to be entitled to SSP. And that's now being abolished completely. So there's no longer an earnings requirement. So that means even if you work 1 day a week and for a few hours, you would be entitled to SSP. Because of that, it will bring a lot of lower earners into eligibility. And they've also therefore changed what the rate of SSP will be. So SSP will be either the flat rate of SSP, which is currently £123.25, or 80% of average weekly earnings, because for lower paid earners, it can be more lucrative to be off sick than it is in work. But again, that's another complicating factor for businesses to navigate around.
And Neil, Jill's obviously, she's reeled off some numbers there and some quite in-depth bits of that legislation already. So, from your perspective, you obviously you're informing members about these changes in SSP rules. But as a sector, how do you think there's an awareness of the in-depth nature of SSP, or do you think it's just we know it's here, but we're not sure what we have to do about it yet?
I think it's a bit of both. I think, yes, they know it's there. I think there will be some people that know it fully, and then there will be the others that don't really know it, and it goes off to an accountant who works it all out for them. But I do know from what we put out there, we've shared all the information that Citation have given us on the changes. We've invited them along to your webinars that have done that as well, and I know you've spoken at a number of our events as well around this. I do think. I don't think many can put their head in the sands anymore about about this, because it needs to be. They need to know it. They need to understand the impact, because every bit of additional SSP they have to pay now has an even bigger impact on their contract and their profit levels, and it's really important that they understand it.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Couldn't agree more. So I guess also as well, one of the biggest worries is getting that balance right. So employers they want to be supportive and fair, whilst obviously they have to recognise to be, to protect their service levels and client expectations and the contracts they sign and what have you. So, Jill, we always talk about a fair and consistent absence management, but what would that process kind of look like in reality?
Well, I think first of all, it's about making decisions based on the correct data. So making sure that you have got reliable systems where all absence can be recorded and recorded accurately. So for example, in some systems, it doesn't differentiate between time off for dependents, which we've been looking after a child who's been off school, and sickness absence. So making sure that you've got systems in place to accurately record absence, and also have return to work meetings so that you can collect information about why they were off, to understand the reasons why they were off, because that's really the key to then understanding what is a fair way to deal with that absence. And also, I think a lot of employers tend to take the approach that a fair way is treating everyone absolutely the same. Because on the face of it, I suppose that does sound fair. If
Yeah.
you're treating everyone the same, then no one can complain. But the danger of that is that it is ignoring the individual circumstances, and that's what a tribunal would expect you to do, to judge each case on its merits. So I would say, rather than aiming for consistency, which is treating all cases alike, aim for consistency, which is treating like cases alike, and always inquire what are the reasons for the absence, and making sure that you're really responding to that in the appropriate way.
And I guess those sorts of procedures and whatnot, that could also help with, we always talk about intermittent short-term absences. I know Neil's mentioned things about some of the longer term coming into play, but for employers who want to tackle those kind of short-term Friday, Monday itis or whatever, would you got any pointers about how they can do that in a way that's still got the human feeling, but also is legally robust?
I think, first of all, having the discipline of having return to work meetings for every absence. And I know that, I've spoken to many clients in the cleaning sector as in other sectors, and you're also always so busy with the day job. You've got so many things to do that I think when someone's back in work, it's almost as if, well, that problem's over. I'll just concentrate on today's problems. And return to work meetings tend to be go by the wayside, even if it's part of your policy. But the key to that in every case is to make sure that, first of all, people know that their absence is being monitored. I find that very often when you are proactively managing absence, just the fact that you're having that discipline of having those meetings can bring good results in your absence levels, and not be afraid of tackling the issue. Again, I think can be an awkwardness about, people don't want to be accusing people of things, but if there is a pattern there, you can ask about that pattern. Is there any particular reason why that might be the case? And there may be a reason why there is a case. But if there's not, then you have got a formal process that you can follow.
And Neil, just picking up on that. Bless you.
Excuse me.
No worries. So clearly not sickness, not getting sick or anything. No, good.
I know it's
so
Monday, but
it's
I'm all right.
Monday. Yeah, you're okay with it. No problem. So BICSc are a client as well, so you can use obviously Atlas to record that. Don't worry, man. So there we go. So I just wanted to, so you look after members large and small. I've met them at conferences and whatnot. So do you think your members are quite alike in obviously some of your larger members, how they would approach short-term sickness compared to say some of the smaller members where they might have a bigger impact?
I don't think there's any particular pattern. If I'm honest, every business is different and every business reacts differently, and it depends on the advice they're getting. So for me, get the best advice you can. It would be my recommendation. And obviously, we rate Citation highly for that advice. But every business has its own way of getting that advice. ACAS is, I know a lot of the businesses use for obvious reasons. But then I just think the level of consistency in advice is different. Get the best your company can afford.
Yeah, no, good suggestions. Jill, with regards to solutions and what good can look like when it comes to SSP, if we think about making sickness absence easier to manage, what practical tools and approaches make the biggest difference? Is it things like well-designed forms? Is it having an up-to-date absence policy? Is it training? Is it access to advice? Or is it a combination of everything?
It is a combination of everything. I think having the right policy, the right processes in place, but I would signal two things are really crucial for the success of it. First of all, training line managers. In fact, I would take it even a step back from that and saying the relationship between managers and their teams is incredibly important in relation to sickness absence management, but also in relation to employee engagement, retention, because you want to make sure that they are checking in with their teams regularly and have that relationship of trust, because I think that makes it much easier for employees to be open if they are struggling with their health. And it also helps managers have that initial conversation. So I do think that having the relationship to begin with their team is really important, and then training them on how to have these conversations. It is very difficult. I mean, a lot of managers do think, I don't want to upset someone. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want them to have a complaint against me. But to acknowledge that it's going to be awkward for anyone to have this conversation. But if you're doing it in a supportive way, if you're inquiring, if you genuinely want to get to the bottom of whether there is a reason why their absence levels are becoming a concern and how can they help them, that early intervention is going to pay dividends, really. And it's much better to be putting time and resources towards that than in tackling formal processes later down the line. But I think taking advice is also very important because these are very technically, legally complex situations. And it's unrealistic to expect managers to be able to know necessarily what is the next step, what is a fair way to actually tackle the issue without creating risk for the business. So by taking, expert legal advice on it, and also I think looking for medical support as well. One of the issues facing a lot of businesses in the sector is the fact they don't have occupational health support they can turn to. And it was interesting to see that the government launched 4 pilots last week, because they're committed to changing the fit note system, because it really doesn't work. You have millions of fit notes issued every year, and most of them just simply say they're not fit to work. And that's not really helping people get back into work. So these pilots are looking at actually referring the individuals to groups of clinical and non-clinical professionals who are going to involve employers much earlier on and be looking at what can be done to help to get the employee back. So I think that's a very positive step.
And Neil, I guess from your perspective, BICSc will always put the operative first. That's obviously one of your main mission statements. So I guess you're only going to agree with anything that can help reduce sickness levels and make that operative feel more valued in the workplace, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the whole footnote changes and bringing thinking about the employer as well earlier on will only help all of our members. It will only be a positive step. Like any business, footnotes are only useful if they give you any information that you can work with. And I have to say, from most footnotes I see, you don't really get any information that you can work with. And that then involves occupational health, where you're not able to have the right kind of conversation with your employee. So yeah, BICSc are totally in support of all of this.
Yeah, good to hear. Sickness absence can feel like one of the most frustrating and sensitive parts of running any business, and cleaning is no exception. But as we've discussed today, when you understand the basics of SSP, have clear and fair processes, and give managers the confidence and tools to have honest conversations, it becomes something that you can manage proactively rather than constantly having to firefight. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my guests, Jill McAteer and Neil Spencer-Cook from BICSc, the British Institute of Cleaning Science, for sharing their insight and expertise. And to all our listeners, if you're unsure about your obligations regarding SSP, or you want your absence policies and letters reviewed, or just need support training for your managers and handling sickness absence fairly and confidently, you'll find details of how Citation can help in the show notes. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.